Hello. I'm just taking a little time to hopefully answer some of your questions regarding the SLO reflection documentation that's coming up due soon, specifically parts 2, 3, and 4. So I'm going to show you step by step what to do from your Eduphoria website. So from the Eduphoria website, you will obviously go to Strive. And then when you're at Strive, really quickly before we go into the SLO reflection, a lot of people have multiple goals, and a lot of the goals that are up there are old, from last year or from 2016, as a matter of fact, or weren't submitted. So if you have goals that aren't approved, that you don't need, on your end, you can actually use this button to remove it. And that would ultimately clean up your screen, and make it a lot cleaner for both you and your appraiser. So that's just a quick little, nugget of information regarding that. But now on to what we're here for, which is your SLO reflection document. So when you click on your SLO reflection document, you completed the first part, step 1, which is ultimately what is the focus of your SLO during your summer PD. Most of you did it during summer PD in your PLC groups. If you haven't done it, or if you did it later, the date in which you did it ultimately doesn't matter, but the first part should have been completed. At this particular point now, let's move on to step 2. Step 2 is where we are now, which is what your students should be able to do. Now that you've had them for the 3 weeks with progress report 1 just being completed, you can now answer these questions. So the first question, which is, what is your SLO skill focus? And that is, again, when you made your SLO goal with your appraiser, what is that skill focus that you talked with your appraiser and you both agreed that this is where you want to focus on with your students in that particular class that you're tracking? You quickly want to describe a developing student, and then you want to count the number of students that are in the developing level. Again, this is pretty much what you're doing as far as your tracker. So you just want to make sure that as your tracker was submitted, this is where you would put the information on. Here's where it's important to think about the students within your tracker and why you chose them. So specifically, within those 7 periods that you had, what was the period, you ultimately 6 periods, what period did you choose and why? What was specific about that period? Hopefully it's a very good representation of the rest of your classes so that the data that you're using is accurate and can be very useful and beneficial. You then want to match your students to the descriptions in the initial student skill profile. The next step is, what student work did you use to map students to the initial skills profile? And again, what is the data point in which you used to start tracking your students? What was that specific assignment or assessment? Step 3, and this looks very similar to step 2, but I want to point out the difference is it's ultimately what is your expectations for these students, whether it be the end of the semester, if you have a semester class, or the end of the year, because that's the difference between step 2 and 3. Step 2 is current here and now versus step 3, which is obviously the expectations at the end, whether it be a semester class, like I said, or a full year class. Then you want to talk about what evidence will you use to establish the skill levels, meaning what assessment or assignment are you going to be using to measure those specific checkpoints in the end of the year or end of the semester aspect as well. And then that leads to step 4, which is the final part of the reflection document, and that is something that you'll talk with your appraiser with, and that with these 3 questions, such as How will you differentiate instruction for the higher performing students versus the lower performing students? How will you monitor progress? And then finally, describe your plan with conferencing with your colleagues. Again, this is what you do within your PLC. So these are all aspects within this SLO reflection document. Once you're done with this, you will then click on Save. And then you'll click on Close. And then when you click on the document again, it will then be on it. Obviously, since I didn't type anything, there won't be anything there. But again, once you complete it and once you save it, it'll be completely updated. So I hope you were able to follow along with the step-by-step instruction video. If this was helpful, I'm glad. I don't have any problem in doing more of these if this is something that's beneficial. So if you could just let me know. You can email me any questions or concerns. But again, thank you for your time regarding your SLO reflection document.